what's up you guys, the Curious Owl here, and today I'm going to be telling you guys about how November went in terms of my reading, which was not that great, I shall say, because November was really freaking nuts with things like Thanksgiving and Black Friday and, finishing up a lot of projects for different classes in preparation for finals. It was just a freaking nightmare. I am surprised I even got through one book this entire month because of how silly it was in terms of activity, I guess we'll say. But I did end up managing to finish 2 books out of this month, out of the 5 I think that I had listed down, which isn't too bad, but I wish it would have been a little bit better. But unfortunately things just kind of got out of hand in terms of school, so there's not really much I could really do, and this was the best I could do, which I'm very proud of. I am very happy to say I finished one book that I started in October, and I just was really happy with how it turned out, that I'm excited to continue with the series. But without further ado, let me get into the stats for this month. So like I said, I finished 2 books, and I ended up reading a total of 522 pages, and I listened to about 878 minutes worth of audiobook, which is about 14 hours and 38 minutes. Both of the books that I read this month were borrowed. One was a physical book though, and one was an audiobook. The physical book I had gotten from my dad because it was a part of his set that he had, and then the audiobook I listened to was borrowed from the library through Overdrive. So the first book I finished this month was my audiobook for the month, which was Mr. Mercedes by Stephen King. This was a random pick for me. It was one of the first books that I saw that was available, and that's how I've been kind of picking my audiobooks as of late, is basically just whatever books are available currently through Overdrive, through my public library that I haven't read yet and that I've been interested in, I usually will get. And if it's like especially the beginning of a series, which this one is. This book took me by complete surprise because The Dark Tower by Stephen King was not as memorable for me. And I have to say, Mr. Mercedes has got to be now my #1 Stephen King favorite because I just loved every second of listening to this book. The narration was really great. The story itself was really captivating. It was fast-paced. It was told from 2 perspectives that were very different, and it honestly led to the story being that much more engaging. And the funny thing is actually the way that this story was built is very similar to how I want my mystery novel to play out, and I think that it has honestly played out so well to the point where I am very confident that my story that I'm working on, I've been working on now for almost 4 years, is going to be really, really captivating, and I'm very excited to continue with it. So to discuss Mr. Mercedes a little bit in terms of the plot, it is following 2 separate characters. We have Mr. Mercedes. His story is that at the beginning he steals a Mercedes car and drives it into a crowd of people, killing 8 and injuring several others, and nobody has been able to find out who he is. No one was able to capture him at that point in time, and so he kind of had gone missing. And that leads into the next character, which is Bill Hodges, who was one of the detectives that was trying to find Mr. Mercedes, but the case kind of came up towards the end of his career into his retirement, and so he was not able to catch him. And several months after his retirement, he starts to develop very depressive thoughts and very suicidal thoughts because of a lot of things that have gone wrong, and especially with the fact that he did not capture Mr. Mercedes. He feels that he is responsible then for a lot of other things that happen afterwards. Then on the edge of suicide, Bill gets a letter from a mysterious person who claims to be the Mercedes killer, saying that basically, haha, you didn't catch me, and now I may go kill again. So the whole story is Bill trying to find out who Mr. Mercedes is and stop him before something else happens where he kills more people. And then the second perspective is, like I said, Mr. Mercedes, who is known as Brady in real life, and you really see the inner workings of his mind and how damaged he really is, and a lot of things that you learn about him make you understand kind of why he is the way he is, but you understand too that he is an absolute sociopath that is dangerous and needs to be taken care of. And I say sociopath in the actual way that it would be used medically because of the fact that he exhibits several traits and is even called a sociopath several times by Hodges, who is a really, really well-versed man in psychology based on his years in the police force. Like I said, the narration and the plot of the story were really, really great. I also loved the construction of the novel with Bill and Brady. I think that both perspectives really played well with each other. And I think that Brady specifically really showcased a lot of not just about him and his mental problems, but I think just explaining a lot of why he is the way he is and really delving into that aspect of it. This is the first novel actually in a trilogy, which I did not realize, and I did look up the synopses of both of the other two books, and they are very, very interesting to me. I truly loved every single aspect of this novel, from the characters, because there's a lot of great characters that help Bill along the way as he's trying to figure out who Mr. Mercedes is. As twisted as it sounds, I really liked Mr. Mercedes too, because I thought that he was just that perfect amount of crazy that you're terrified of him, but at the same time you're really intrigued by his mental state, that you're kind of wondering why he is the way he is. And honestly, the book reminded me so much of how I felt when I first read Along Came a Spider by James Patterson, which was the inspiration for me to write my own mystery novel. So I think that this had just a lot of great warm-hearted feelings for me, and as twisted as that sounds based on the content of the story, but I think that just overall the story really captivated me and made me continue to have a drive to write my own book. And so I honestly gave it a 5 out of 5 stars because I just loved it so much. I can't even begin to explain how much this book meant to me in terms of me understanding that I know what I'm doing with my writing is right and it's going to pay off eventually. And the second and final book I ended up reading this month was A Game of Thrones by George R.R. Martin, the first book in the Song of Ice and Fire series. This book I picked up for my random TBR pick in October, and I didn't finish it, and so I decided to try to finish it this month, and I said that if I was to like it enough, I would continue with the series from there. And I was not disappointed in the slightest. There were a lot of things I was not okay with throughout most of the novel, but the majority of it I truly, truly liked, and I was very interested in continuing with the series. There's a lot of characters I really don't like, but overall I really liked it. I really liked a lot of the characters involved with it. While I hated some of the characters, I think that they truly had some great points within the story. Even if some of the perspectives may not have necessarily been needed, I think that some of them were really, really great. I love Jon as a character. He's probably one of my favorites besides Eddard Stark, and I just really, really enjoyed a lot of aspects of this novel, and I truly think that it has become clear to me why so many people enjoyed this and enjoyed the TV series. And I think that once I get through at least the second book, I will get into the TV series. Hopefully, I'm not sure on that. It will depend on how things kind of go once I get onto Christmas break, because I may have a job after I get out of school, I may not. It really just depends on how things go in the next couple weeks. So if I like the second book enough, I will continue with the series and then watch also at the same time the TV show and see how I like that in terms of the adaptation. I've heard a lot of good things about the adaptation and how the TV series really does a good job of connecting itself to the books, and there may be some changes here and there, but it's nothing too drastic to where it would ruin the entire story. Game of Thrones, like I said though, did have some problems with it that I'd go into in my review, but overall I ended up giving it a 4 out of 5 stars. So those are the 2 books I ended up reading in November. It was very, very hard to get through those books though, I have to say, because especially with the Game of Thrones, it was very dense and it took a lot of time for me to get through it, and with everything that was going on with school at the same time, it made it even harder to get through it, because I think that if I didn't have as many projects as I had over the course of this month, I think I would have gotten through it a lot quicker. But there was just so many things. Like I had the conference in November that I presented at, I had Thanksgiving and Black Friday and a bunch of papers due and other projects for different classes, and it's just been a nightmare. But at this point, I have just under 2 weeks left of college until I graduate and I am done, so I'm hoping that December will be a lot nicer to me and let me get through a lot more books. But I can be hopeful, but we'll see how that goes. So anyway, thank you guys so much for joining me in this video. If you guys did enjoy it, please do give it a big thumbs up. And if you're not already and you'd like to be, hit that button down below and subscribe to become an owlet in our flock. And I will see all of you guys in my next video. Bye guys.